Good morning, everybody, or good evening, wherever you are on the planet. How's it going? Hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. Whoa, there's already a heap of you in here. Hey, Matt, Harry, Shane, Robert, to come look. Redneck Demon. Fresh block of death cheese. Let's do this. Let's get it. Just lately I've been amusing myself by watching the YouTube channel of Eddie Hall, UK strongman and world's strongest man, who deadlifted 500 kilos and the same year won the world's strongest man. And he's quite amusing to watch on YouTube, and he's got a good YouTube channel, and he goes around and does stuff, and yeah. It's cheese and crackers this morning. Arby's. Hey, gifted muses. Gifted from users. That's a good question. Blue cheese is not penicillin cheese. It's in the same family, though. Who knows? I mean, it can't hurt. I am having some black coffee to wash that down. Although later on, I probably will have a beer. I usually have a beer on hand. Although, I should mention, I'm not a regular drinker, what you would say. So I can go weeks and weeks and weeks between having a beer. It doesn't bother me at all. But when I do have beers, I usually have one or two in a day. If I'm going out with friends, then I'll drink more. But usually, always with food. There is several versions of Cthulhu for the 5e game. Oh, no, I'm indicating that this is a super chat enabled live stream. And I'm also pointing to this week's clue for the giveaway for this awesome literal prize pack packed with Dwarven Forge, terrain, custom leather-bound rulebooks, a chainmail dice bag, some awesome zinc alloy mood dice, and a notebook, and a dice tray. And I'm really enjoying the chainmail, the dice tray, that awesome gold dragon dice tray, and the chainmail dice bag and stuff. I'm using them on a regular basis. Hey, Dustin. You only drink at church. Fair enough. That was his first miracle, wasn't it? Turning water into wine, I believe. Year-old Parmesan. Nice. Yeah, most people want it. I would agree. Yeah, it is a truly awesome giveaway. And I'll probably be repeating this next year or something like it as well. Yeah, Bannerloths are awesome. North Dakota. How's the weather? I hear it's pretty cold still. You've never seen a chainmail dice bag? Well, there you go. So the topic of today's of today's live stream is working from home. There's a few YouTubers who I've seen, and also just general, like Devin Rue, for instance, is a cartographer and artist who works from home. And James Desborough is a game designer. He did like Machinations of the Space Princess and various other games. He's been in the industry for a long time. He also talks about a lot of sort of social issues and political stuff on his channel as well. And I find him interesting to listen to. And he works from home as well, and he's got a very practical guide to things that you should keep in mind when working from home, like put clothes on and control your urges and things like that, which is all entirely true. So I've been working from home over a year now, and well, almost a year now. Coming up on April will be when I switch over to. I've been doing this for a year, and it's a thing, and it worked. It was very scary actually, leaving paid work to work for myself. Probably one of the most nerve-wracking things I've done, because you have no safety net. You're entirely responsible for your own income. And I know this is the fate of most small business owners and things, and craftsmen and traders and things. For me, who had basically worked in employed jobs since I was 11 years old, it was kind of scary, because I was responsible for my income, not somebody else. So if I didn't work, it was my fault. Yeah, don't dress up like Thor when working from home. You can if you want to, like certain things. You have a certain sort of workflow and things like that. You pace yourself, because I can literally get most of my work done in the morning if I really push myself, or usually I'll do the bulk of my work in the evenings and the early mornings when it's not so like the middle of the hot day, particularly in summer. In winter, I'm probably going to be working a lot more steadily during the day, because I just prefer colder weather. But as it is, I have my fans and stuff on me all the time, because I literally work better when I'm cold. No infections? Yeah. Rolls a d20 every day. So the other thing that you can do when you're working from home is you can plan and diversify a lot of what you're doing. When you go to work at a job, you do what they tell you to do, and that's it really. You don't have a lot of creative freedom in what you do. When you're working from home by yourself, you can really try new things and diversify your portfolio of income streams, which is highly important because it gives you added stability. So if something falls over, like YouTube falls over and doesn't pay me, there's Patreon, or there's another streaming service which I've hooked up with, which is called... Where's my details for that? It's called Viewer Prime, and I've got a link to that in the last couple of videos that I've done. So Viewer Prime is, I think it's like $2.99 per month, and you get access to everything else which is on Viewer Prime, including the Lingerie Wrestling Show. It's pretty much, it's very much like YouTube used to be, but it's also got a lot of international content and stuff like that on there, like Bollywood shows and things. I'm the first YouTuber who does D&D videos who's on there. And I've currently uploaded my my Giants series, but I'm going to be uploading stuff there before it hits YouTube. So if you're a subscriber to that streaming service, then you get access to the early stuff that I put out for Patreon subscribers and YouTube members as well. So there's that added incentive to go and get that. Nothing that I put up on there though is going to be restricted to that though, because that's against the terms of service of using material from Wizards of the Coast. Everything that I put out has to be made freely available to everybody, which I'm fine with, except things like me reading stories or just talking about specific, non-specific D&D topics and things like that. I can make exclusive videos on that sort of content, as long as I don't talk about beholders or mind flayers or anything that's the copyrighted IP of Wizards of the Coast. I'm fine. So that's what I'll be doing. And for those of you who have said there needs to be competition for YouTube, that is competition for YouTube directly, because every subscriber that I have on that channel, if you sign up with my name when you're subscribing to Viewer Prime, that gets me $1 per subscriber per month guaranteed. So if I have 2,000 subscribers on Viewer Prime, then that's $2,000 in my pocket, which is a huge difference from YouTube. So yeah, you can see how it works and how it's much better. The topic of the day is basically working from home and live streaming and doing videos and what I do. Unearthed Arcana. Yeah, well, with me, essentially everything I do is work time. If it's not, it will be like my downtime is part of my work time, because I'm thinking about what I do and I am giving myself that time for my brain to compose stuff and work on what it wants to do next. I've got a very compartmentalized mental landscape where things literally work on, my brain literally works on things in the background while I'm doing other stuff. I can sort of check in on it, and it's composing stuff in a way. It's like when you've got a song stuck in your head, except for me, it's a topic on like halflings, all the halfling religion and stuff. It's under my name, AJ Pickett, so you can go and find it there. Anyway, so the other thing that I do is I diversify and look into other revenue streams. So the Teespring t-shirt design and stuff is another revenue stream, and I'm also working with, at the moment, I'm working with BestCon, which is a dice company, and also D&D WoW, which is a dice company. But I think D&D WoW is going to start diversifying into equipment that allows you to stream using your mobile phone. So I'm very enthusiastic about that shift there. BestCon, I'm designing some custom dice for them, and we'll see how that pans out. It's very informal. That's the way working with China. You start off with a very informal sort of relationship where you build a friendship with the people that you're working with over in China, and then you start talking business. If you just come at them without a sort of a personal relationship, it's a very different sort of situation. So yeah, at the moment I'm talking with Paul over at DESCON. He's the one. The BestCon is the company that produced these, and this is my opportunity to show you these dice. So here's the cover packaging. You may recognize that. BestCon complete set includes D3, D4, D6, D8, D10, D percentile, D12, D20, D24, D30, D50, D60, and a D100. You want to see these? So somebody checked these out on the Discord server, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll check those out. Quite happy that I did. I've always wanted a set of complete dice. So here is the D3. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's basically got 3 corners on it, and a lot of them look like a D20, but this is the D24. And the D100s are, of course, great big things. I find it's best to not roll this. You basically roll it in your hand and then you slap it down on the table. It's much easier. With these very rounded dice, that's generally the way that you do it. So they're good, solid, balanced dice. Just a single color, very easy to read, which is what I prefer. You build a friendship before you know you speak Mandarin fluently. No, I don't speak Mandarin fluently. I find it a very difficult language to learn. No, that's not off topic, Harry. Actually, I'm just going to pop out the chat in case I miss anything. Remember, it's very easy to get my attention with super chats, and if you type my name in there, I'll be able to see it a lot easier. But I do tend to skip over things. Vomiting mechanic in D&D is basically the sickened condition, the poisoned condition, disadvantage on attacks and ability checks. You could have it stunned is the actual act of vomiting. So stunned is you're incapacitated, can't move, and can speak only falteringly. Auto fail, strength and dexterity saving throws. Attacks against you have advantage while you're vomiting. So you basically and can't move and can't talk and stuff, which is pretty accurate. So they're going to send me they're going to print off a test run of the custom dice. I'm currently composing what the dice actually mean. Those of you on the Discord server will have seen a couple of those sets. So they include, let's see, I've got a random roll dice for dungeon design. So it's like a corridor, straight corridor, curved corridor, big room, small room, blah, 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 blah. I've got outdoor terrain, so hills, mountains, forest, blah, blah, blah. I've got the different damage types, so poison, necrotic, psychic, thunder, force, radiant, acid, lightning, fire, and cold, and psychic. And I've got the direction dice, which is the cardinal points and the compass, the treasure dice, so determining what sort of treasure item it is, and weather dice, as well as a starting emotional state of an NPC dice, which is actually really handy. And working on other stuff like a body hit location die as well, because Bestcon is like, isn't there any D6 dice that you can think of? I was like, yeah, the random hit location for a body. So left arm, right arm, main body, head, leg, 6. Yeah, the irony is that the verbal inflection in English is just as subtle as that in Chinese, except in Mandarin, it really does convey different meanings to words. Hey, thanks, William. Unfortunately, I can't read that. I could probably translate it with Google. I will later, actually. No, I can't. I can't understand what those kanji are. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's a guy sitting at a table eating rice, or that's a tree, or that's a house. That's a tree under a house, or something like that. But yeah, it's very, very much stylized. What's one of my favourite books for 5th edition? Probably Volo's Guide is one of the best books for 5th edition. Aside from just, the player's handbook is actually pretty well designed. Yeah, I've seen, very true, Frederick. I've seen these sort of custom dice before, and I've always wanted a set, and I haven't seen a place where you could just buy all of them in one go as like a DM set. So I'm talking with Bestcon really is like, who's going to buy these? I'm like, anybody who plays any sort of D&D game, any system, or any edition of that game are going to want to get these dice, because people who play D&D games collect weird dice. That's what we do. It's in our blood. It's part of our addiction, and having these unique sort of dice would, yeah. What languages do I know? I use technology for understanding languages. So I use Google Translate and stuff like that for understanding languages and speaking back to people, and try and do my best to understand a little bit of most languages, the most common languages in the world. So Spanish and a little bit of Mandarin, a little bit of Chinese, Portuguese, that sort of thing. But really, I only speak English. I'm terrible. English is my only fluent language. Random Mandarin super chat. That's not random. And thank you very much, William, for becoming a backer on Patreon. I appreciate it. The Midgard setting, I've only sort of just started reading through the Midgard setting, and it's really good. I really like it's in a way it's kind of like the epic Theros setting. Theros is very much Greek gods, Greek mythology, Greek legends, whereas Midgard is a combination of different things. It's got a more sort of Norse feel in a way from what I was reading it. What I really like about it though is the way they handle time in between adventures and things, so that you can have long play episodic adventures where we track through the entire career life of a character and have legacy characters after them, so you can have a dynasty of different characters and their offspring and build a castle and heroes and knights and all that sort of stuff. You can actually work on politics and stuff. So you have, from the player's point of view at the table, the adventure sort of unfolds the same sort of way when you're actually actively adventuring. But in the downtime, it handles it quite differently, so that in Midgard you can have months between adventures. So yeah, I really like that. Thanks, Hoovgoon. Have you ever considered doing short stories themed after D&D? Yes. In fact, the writing that I do for my D&D videos incorporates that. So that's me sort of stretching my muscles. However, in the videos, there's a very fine line between doing too much story and not enough crunch, or too much crunch and not enough story. People appreciate a little bit of mood setting and a little bit of story, but not too much. And I test the waters and just get feedback from people, and about 2 or 3 minutes of story is about as much as most people can handle. Yeah, Ravnica is awesome. I would have liked more information on the Undercity of Ravnica, and I think it could probably do with a supplement or two. And I've seen some stuff on Drive-Thru RPG. Drive-Thru RPG is really your go-to for that sort of stuff. For instance, in the latest Theros video, people mentioned that I used a map, actually my editor, Ian, used a map of Innistrad in the video, because he mistakenly thought it was in Theros because it had the name Theros on the top of the map, but it was actually the world of Innistrad. There is no current publicly released official map of Theros. It will be probably when the supplement comes out, but there's a few people's approximations of what Theros looks like. But if you go to Drive-Thru RPG for free, you can pick up a copy of Planescape Guide to Innistrad. Because the same author who made Ravnica and Theros also made these other supplements that you can pick up for free or cheap on Drive-Thru RPG. So there's other settings for Magic the Gathering. There's other crossovers that have been worked on and are currently available. So go and check them out. You're working on something like that at the Neon Dungeoneers. Excellent. No, I don't have a video on the Spell Plague and how to use it in 5th edition because, how do I put it politely? I didn't like the Spell Plague, and I'm not really interested in the Spell Plague. I also don't really like dragon marks from Eberron. That's one of the things that really turned me off Eberron, because they can sort of be power gamed too easily. Like, just from a personal preference, yeah. But there's research on the lore of the Spell Plague and stuff, and I can certainly talk about it in a historical context, and also, the time of troubles and things like that, and make a brief overview of that, of exactly what happened, for people who have no idea what the time of troubles or the Spell Plague was, or why so many people are upset about it, Hey! Thanks, amigo Roberto. Welcome to Silver Dragon. Hey, Kollros. Riddle. In societies of greater, most unheard of. That's the riddle? Beggars? I don't know. Yeah, well, the Artificer class isn't just restricted to Eberron. You can play it in other settings as well. As I pointed out in my video, there is a huge case to be made for Artificers being a major part of Faerun. I will be making videos about the Dragon Rage and stuff, and why it was so important, because it's now ended in the world of Faerun, or the world of Toril. So I'm about to get stuck into making more and more remakes of the Dragon series. So doing a more complete version of the Dragon series with much better production values. And that'll be kicking off pretty much from the start of April and going onwards. Obviously, I'm going to be producing a lot more content in light of the current conditions in the world at the moment. I think people will appreciate me making more long play videos and stuff if they're stuck at home or whatever. I didn't miss the cheese. I have eaten the cheese. I'm still eating cheese. Yeah, Heliod is kind of like a mix between Apollo and Zeus. How many silver dragons? A few. Not as many as the gold and the bronze dragon. Well, the bronze dragons, of course, is more popular. But I've got a surprisingly large amount of gold dragons. How do you go about making knowledge checks for monsters in D&D 5e? So it falls under either... So the intelligence covers both arcana and religion and nature and history and also just general weird shit. So that's your, like, intelligence is your memory of things. That's those things that you have learned. Whereas wisdom is your observation of things, those things that you can see, sense, detect, understand in the world around you. So wisdom is the here and now. Intelligence is stuff you've learned before, in a nutshell. So it is a straight up intelligence check. Oh, someone asked what they missed. Oh, sorry, Tengu. I understand. Could you show the cheese again? Sure. So this is the sort of cheese that I eat. It is a viciously potent blue cheese called Kikarangi, but I call it the Catoblepis death cheese. It is creamy and strong. Yep, I'm staying safe and healthy. And again, my apologies for cancelling going to Gen Con this year. I strongly suspect that Gen Con probably will be affected by this, although it's not officially yet. But a lot of conventions are shutting down. Comic Con, E3, GaryCon has just announced that they're not going to be running this year, which is, tough on GaryCon because they don't make a lot of money out of that, and that's going to hit them quite hard financially. So if there's Give a Littles or a GoFundMe or something like that for GaryCon, certainly if you appreciate what they do, help them out. Trade routes through the desert, yeah. So the Zentarum are certainly a thing, but don't forget that the Bedine live in the desert regions, and they have a trade network all of their own. So there's non-human populations, goblinoids, hobgoblins, and things that live in the Anarok Desert, as well as Kalimshan and various other desert regions in the Forgotten Realms. It's a heavily populated region. Grey fuzz. You talking about my grey fuzz? Adepticon shut down as well. Damn. Yeah, pretty much everything is cancelling at the moment. I have intelligence and wisdom backwards. No, I don't. Watching from work. Shh. Oh, good. No, so there's no international travel for me this year whatsoever. I'm going to be sticking in the country, which is not what I planned. Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, on the one hand, I'm a bit up. I was really looking forward to going to Gen Con. It's one of my bucket lists of my life goals. But on the other hand, I also really like what I do, and I am very much a Hobbit homebody, and I like being productive and staying at home. So I appreciate that there's no disruption to my work schedule this month. Well, in the coming months. This month, I've got one weekend which I'm away for a cousin festival where the family members gather together. However, certain of my cousins who live overseas can't make it this year because they cannot travel internationally. New Zealand has essentially closed its borders. which is fair enough. You'd expect that from an island nation. So it's only temporary. Like the travel ban flattens the curve, as they say. So stopping people traveling internationally and stopping large gatherings and things like that stops wide scale spread of the illness. And then after that, it's essentially just do the stuff and sort of self isolate and don't make physical contact with people and things like that. Just make it part of your habits, but don't go crazy. The chances are though that you will come in contact with it at some point because it's a flu type virus. Oh, the cheese grey fuzz. Yeah. It actually, it just looks like that. Yeah, that is the mold, the blue cheese mold on the outside there. It's actually a really nice cheese. Yeah, so I would like to run some games on Discord for sure. Jess Jackdaw. Yes, I have heard of Jess Jackdaw. What was that, Kyle? Opinion doesn't change the definition? Hope it doesn't affect the ConnectCon in July. You're looking at about 6 months of this going on. Glacier video. Soon. Coronavirus is not a flu-type virus. Yeah, it's a respiratory virus. Discord games. Underdark Ecology. Yeah, that needs an update as well. Well, the good thing is seeing as I work from home and stuff, I've already stockpiled plenty of meals and things like that. I have everything I need. I have no need to stockpile anything. Well, I have no need to go and panic buy. I have everything I need. I've literally got 2 or 3 months worth of supplies in the house right now. You're converting a map of the Grand Canyon into a D&D map. Got a few towns open for foreign influence. Definitely one with curious and will play. Yeah, that's a really great idea. I'd love to do that as well. Oh yeah, if you can. Oh, they used to have that Norwegian cheese in New Zealand, and my dad and I both love it. It's a really weird, nutty, sweet, quite unlike any other cheese. And a lot of people hate it, but it's almost like a malty sort of flavour to it. But we really love it. Ominous. Zinc lozenges. What I do actually is I take every day. I consume vitamin gummies. They're my treat. I don't have sweets, but I have like vitamin gummies. Yeah, I'm a strong believer in taking vitamins, and it pays off. Vitamin gummies and exercise to keep your mood up and stuff, and also getting out of the house and walking around and going and doing exercise is good for you. And it also, I think it's a vital part of the writing process is to get up and do stuff. Yes, Dragon Lord. There is an old map of all the different trade products and their routes around the Forgotten Realms, which is really fascinating, and I would love to do a part of that. You'll see that in my first exploration video where I'm talking about Candlekeep and the surrounding region, what the actual trade is between those different towns and things in that region. So textiles, printing, and manufacturing of clothing, and the sort of things that that town is known for food and entertainment and stuff. So that's essentially the treatment that I'm going to be giving to the entire Forgotten Realms as I move around and explore stuff. So probably next up in that series would be Baldur's Gate. Because it's very topical, and I really want to have a trip over to the Moonshae Isles and Lantern and show people around those places as well, and go very detailed into those different locations. Where there is phase rest, there is the drow. Yes, that's true. I was in a conversation with some people in the comment section of the Theros video, got me thinking about how woke do you think Wizards of the Coast is? As woke as anybody, really. I think Wizards of the Coast has got a good balance actually between the different fandoms, because it's a very diverse crowd of people who are getting into D&D right now. And I think there's a lot of sort of, they realize that they're dealing with a legacy of 47 odd years of fandom, and multiple generations of people who play D&D and now teaching their kids how to play D&D. They're transitioning into both mainstream D&D, streaming D&D, tabletop D&D, and D&D associated fandoms of like streaming, cosplay, live action, media, cartoons, TV shows, and things which are outside of their control, their purview. And it's just, D&D is a reflection of the world now. It's not so much the company, it's the fandom in general is a very good sort of litmus test of nerdery everywhere. So yeah, if you go to different countries, the different feel of D&D will be different, and depending on the population. So it's not so much, this isn't driven by Wizards of the Coast, this is just responded to by Wizards of the Coast. And Wizards of the Coast puts out products and deals with things because it's a company run by Hasbro, and Hasbro has got its finger in multiple different pies. So for instance, the way that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast deal with Magic the Gathering is quite different from the way it deals with Dungeons and Dragons, and it's quite different how it runs the Twitch streaming side of things with Critical Role and things like that. So a lot of the stuff that you see in social media with people talking about wokeness and social justice warriors and stuff is their own agenda and bias. It's not the agenda and the bias of the company. So yeah, they'll put stuff there, one little sentence of inclusion anywhere, and it gets a huge amount of impact on the social media scene, because people derive their social status and their reactions and things like that. They're trying to build followers and things because this outrage culture thrives on making a big load of shit out of nothing. So yeah, it's always been inclusive, the game. It's always been woke. That's one of the things. It's always been a medium that people can use their imagination and put themselves in situations outside of their normal box, and that's always been a threat to mainstream media, social organizations, religions, political bodies, people who are concerned, who are just ignorant of what D&D is, and of course people who have got their own moral and ethical agendas in whatever stream of society you want to look at. So it's a good question, and that's my answer. What do you think of her Pokemon D&D Monster Fusion? I think it's absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic, and she deserves all of the fame that she can get for that. It's highly entertaining. Hasbro equals corporation equals woke. No, Hasbro equals corporation equals will do anything to get money, and will behave any way that they think is the best means to get money for their shareholders. They have no ethical agenda. They have no ethical direction other than where the money is. Don't confuse that in any way. Corporations exist to take all of the money and none of the responsibility. If you go into it knowing what your power is your dollar. It's not your survey, it's not your petition, it's your money. That is your power. Yeah, I love D&D and I love Magic the Gathering. They're very different fandoms. It has to be, like, you go to a convention for Magic the Gathering and you go to a convention strictly for D&D. Very different crowd set, very different subsection. Money is quite good, yes. Do I have any live D&D streams that I watch? Pretty much the only thing that I will watch, and not even most of the way through, would be the Acquisitions Incorporated crowd for the most part. I also try and catch bits and pieces here and there, but I never really have time to spend 4 hours watching any sort of stream. If there's streamers out there who like just have an episode that's an hour long, like a session that's an hour long, or it's a highlight reel of their session, so they're cutting it only to the good stuff, or it's a more sort of visually entertaining animated stuff with music and film and things like that involved, then I'm more likely to watch that. I'm the sort of person who, these days, if you take me to like a theatre production or something like that, I'll be sitting there tapping my feet because I'm used to multitasking and doing a lot of different things at the same time. And it's a constant struggle for me to slow down when I'm talking in videos to a cadence that Americans are happy to listen to. Otherwise, I'll be talking like this all the time. No, I wouldn't say money as God. I would say money as your avenging archangel. Essentially, you have the power to starve corporations of money and stop them from doing shit because they will not do anything that is not profitable. They won't do anything that they're not getting revenue for. So if you turn off the tap of revenue, you can control what corporations do. It's that simple. And if you can get enough people to, like, boycotts are what they pay attention to. So if you can get people to boycott stuff, that's as good as political power. And not only that, because politicians are run by corporations now, you can boycott them too. If you find out who all the contributors to the politicians you don't like are and boycott all of them, you essentially shut down that politician. Yep, I've got access to all of the D&D books that they put out. I don't have hard copy of a lot of them, but I do read through the new releases as part of my job. And I like the Rick and Morty one actually more than I like the Acquisitions Incorporated book, which is a huge surprise and disappointment to me in many ways, because I found the Acquisitions Incorporated book didn't take D&D very seriously. Like, for instance, you don't put out a physical print product, which is their DM screen, without anything useful on it other than jokes. That was a bit of a slap in the face. It was like, that's the most useless D&D screen I've ever seen. And I will never use it. And it's just been sitting on my shelf it's actually been sitting on my kitchen bench, getting splashed with water and gathering dust. That's how much I hate the thing. But I have to say that the Rick and Morty D&D book is actually well put together. It contains all of the basic rules stuff that you need. It has explanations of that in the sarcastic fashion of Rick and Morty that actually conveys the information really well, and I think is better orientated at getting the information across to young people than a D&D basic set, because it's entertaining and it's in a medium that they're used to. So yeah, it's a much cooler book. No, I haven't done a video on the World Serpent Inn yet. Yep, animals can get vampirism, it's true. And dwarves. Also giants, goblinoids, yep. How do I structure my day? A large part of my day is bursts of activity, followed by long periods where I'm building up to those bursts of activity, and sometimes I'll get a bubbled up source of inspiration that will see me power through an entire night in half a day. So I can sit down and work for, say, 8 to 10 hours on something, if I'm really in the zone. Otherwise, it'll be bursts of activity about 45 minutes long or so, in which case I will crank out 2,000 or 3,000 words. My 5-page scripts, which is what they are on average. So to give you an example, this is my reading material for this morning. This is on halfling culture. This is also my reading material for the rest of the day, which I'm going to be going through. And this is the full pantheon of the halfling gods, including Timora, who is actually a halfling god. Also, I am reviewing creation of magical items for a video for patrons. Other stuff I've got on the boil is... This is the rest of the material on halflings as well in an itemized folder. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to be reviewing today, and I'll probably crank out a script later on this evening from between about 12 o'clock at night until about 5 o'clock in the morning. I will be working through the night and writing up stuff. Yeah, my accent isn't that difficult to understand because it's toned down quite a bit. My actual way of speaking has changed over the 2 years or 3 years that I've been doing videos. So, yeah, I don't say and R as much as I used to. YouTuber would be character class for sure. Yeah, Tamora. I've got a picture of Tamora. Where is she? So here's the halfling pantheon that most people are used to. So we have Cirolali. There she is. We've got Yondala. We've got Avorine. And we've got Sheila Periroyal. Notice it's got a lilt to their accent, so they speak sort of Welsh. And I'll find Yondala for you. Oh, I mean, I'll find Timora for you. So yeah, Fey, the Fey languages, which is where the halfling language gets a lot of its lilt from. Brandobaris is one of their gods. Brandobaris. So there's Timora. Hairy foot halfling. That's Brandobaris. And that's Timora. Timora. There you go. Hey, Super Kikoni. First time catching a stream. Nice to see you. Vampire elephant, that's terrifying. Yeah, the Gith, we're not sure entirely what the Gith are. Would an Ent vampire drink sap? No, it would still drink blood. Because it's a plant, it can digest organic material, but it's also dead. Vampires get no nourishment from blood. It's a psychological compulsion for them to inflict pain and suffering on the living. It's more of a spiritual life force thing that they're draining from the blood than any sort of physical nourishment, because they're dead. They don't have any biological processes. And if you talk to your average biologist, they absolutely hate the idea of zombies and the undead because they just don't work. There's a physical, chemical, biological process involved in movement that just doesn't work if you don't have the influx of organic material to cause it to happen. Yeah, well, gods are conceptual creatures that are born of belief and mythology in our minds. So the celestial planes of existence, the outer planes, are actually inside our heads. In the D&D multiverse, the astral plane is a mental realm. So we like to think of it as a vast space of unlimited outerness, but in actual fact, you're going inside people's minds. So if everybody suddenly died and there was no living things at all, there'd just be the undead. If there were no thinking creatures whatsoever in the multiverse, then all the gods would vanish. Thanks, Theodore. Weren't you a member of... I've definitely seen your name before. Thanatology, yeah. Vampire mosquito. How could you tell the difference? How did this conversation about vampires begin? Scorch, yeah. So having lived through all of the old settings of D&D, they a lot of them weren't that popular. They were kind of niche even when they were around. Like Spelljammer was popular, but it stopped sort of getting supported because it wasn't attracting more money, more followers to it. Same sort of thing with Dark Sun and things like that. It sort of jumped the shark in the later editions of Dark Sun. Don't forget, we also had 4th edition Dark Sun, and that didn't get a lot of support either. So I can completely understand why they're sort of looking at it and going, well, we have this dedicated bunch of fans who, if we make any changes to it and put out stuff, what are they asking for? Are they asking us for a 5th edition conversion of already existing lore, or do they want us to actually advance the storyline? Because in Dark Sun, that's just further towards the decline of the civilization. Everything in Dark Sun is dying. That's the whole point. It's a dying Earth. Whereas Eberron and things like that, it's a slight increase, and you've got the advantage of having the author of Eberron still sort of active and engaged in it. But he's getting paid to do that sort of stuff, and he's got other projects which he's involved in as well. So yeah, I'm actually more surprised that Eberron is getting the attention that it is, all things considered. But it's quite popular. So I mean, you've got Eberron, and it's actively being engaged with. So what more do you want? We've got a mixture of old and new, and I really like the idea of Magic the Gathering having a crossover and being finally having it in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, because I know there's a lot of crossover between the fandom of Magic the Gathering and D&D, but there's a slight sort of Schadenfreude feeling of your lore is ours now. Dungeons and Dragons now owns your shit. There's nothing you can do about it. Because the Magic the Gathering fandom can be quite toxic. Whoa, Super thank you. I don't have a question, just think you're a lovely chap and want to send money your way. Oh, thank you very much. That's really nice. I don't know what to say. I'm blushing. Bill Gates' anti-mosquito laser machine. Yeah. Actually, viral agents are much better at controlling insect populations. And one of the things they did was they tried making some sterile mosquitoes, and it actually backfired really badly. So you've got to be really careful with mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are a bane to civilization. If we got rid of every mosquito in the world, nobody would care apart from some fish. AJ works at night and has supplies for months. He's a vampire. No, technically I'm a lich. My friend said, oh, you're already a mad prepper. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. It's called introvert. Yes, that's true, Jujubere. A vampire mosquito would be absolutely terrible for transferring. I like to think, though, that vampirism isn't a virus. It's a spiritual transfer. So I don't think you could have a D&D vampire master mosquito. So it wouldn't be able to create new vampires. See what I mean? Now, a werewolf mosquito would be a much more scary prospect. Prism cat? Prism. Welcome to lichdom. Yes. I'm a particularly juicy looking lich. What can I say? Moisturize. I moisturize. Vampire sharks? Yep. Harry, that's a good question. Do you think most people in D&D are homophobic or transphobic or whatever, or would that not make sense? No, I don't think the vast majority of D&D players are in any way phobic. In fact, it's a body of hobby that attracts people who don't have bigotries, because we want to play different things. Like we want to play orcs or elves, or we want to play a different gender, or so I think it's actually the exact opposite. I think the D&D community is actually one of the more welcoming, woke, and inclusive communities. And in some ways, the resentment towards the sort of wokeness push is not oh, you're introducing these ideas to us. It's more like you're pushing this on us like we don't already know. Like you're shoving this shit, like you're knocking on our door and shoving your holy book in our faces, and we've already got our religion. You know what I mean? Dungeons and Dragons has always been this inclusive body of things. It has got problems with being a male-dominated hobby though, just by its very nature, and I think that's something that needs to be worked on. But it's not helpful to turn around and blame that on the fans of the hobby or the people who have been involved in the hobby, because that's not our doing. We didn't actively make it that way. It's just the nature of the hobby itself. So absolutely come on board and play the game with us. We welcome you with open arms, but don't come at it thinking that we've been excluding you all along. The vast majority of players have not. Those who do have been policed in our society as well, within our own group. So nobody likes somebody who's acting like an arsehole towards women or people of different, non-binary nature. Jerk-phobic is more accurate. Yeah, we're jerk-phobic. Yeah, we don't like assholes. We don't like dicks. What can we say? Bigoted against goblins, more like, yeah. Dog flu turns you into a werewolf. Oof. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean that's a fair comment. Racism is a part of the game in the context of the game itself, but that's a very different thing from saying that racism against the drow, between the character and the drow, is racism against people with dark skin in general. That's not the case. It's perfectly fine to compartmentalize it and say, in this situation, in this world, they have very good reason to not like the drow, because the drow attack and murder and kidnap and torture and sacrifice them to a dark and evil goddess. Because that's what happens in that game. You could say, well, why did they have dark skin in the first place? You know what? Give them white skin. Give them purple skin. It doesn't matter. That's not the point of drow. So same thing with goblins. They've got yellow skin, they've got green skin, they've got grey skin. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. And it's not an allegory for the belief of the people at the table. It's not an allegory. It's not a whistleblowing thing. That's just the game. It's just a game. Yeah. Yeah, it depends. I mean, it depends on where you're from and what you do. What sort of population you have, how large the social groups are, and things like that. Yeah, and I'm perfectly comfortable talking about this. I think there are actually some albino drow. William would know. And also, there's some surface dark elves as well, next door to Lurin. Oh, by the way, I've got my big map on the wall up above me. I wonder if I can show you that, actually. Ooh. This is going to be jarring. Sorry. Anybody I just gave horrible vertigo? Yeah, there's the map on the wall up above me. Sorry, I hate it when people move the camera around on me. Yeah, it is in fact just a game, and we all can play nicely together. It's true. Oh, I should mention, on the wall behind me there, you see. In front of me, that wall is my notes and tables and stuff on. There's various maps of Faerun and also charts and tables for challenge ratings and stuff like that. My office is literally just this little cubby hole in a bedroom. It's not that flash, really. My uncle stuck his head in the door, and he says, "Well, I can see what part of your life you prioritise, because my bed is just like this shoved in the corner little alcove, and the office takes up, more than half the room. I'm like, yeah, I sleep in that chair. The bed's just an accessory. William, I don't think that's a prerequisite of albinism. Albinism is a mutation of a gene. It can be accentuated by incest, but not it's not caused by it. Although that's open to debate. Yeah, it's difficult when you get into actual case studies of where things originated in our human population, but it could be entirely different in a D&D world. I mean, it could be the result of a curse or a gift or some god touching somebody to make them look different, that sort of thing. You're always going down a dark path when you're trying to bring real world examples into a game which has always been an approximation of reality, and it's always kind of fruitless going into that, like talking about the real capabilities of a catapult when really it's a fruitless conversation because a catapult is made the way it is in Dungeons and Dragons to fit with other stuff which is based on attributes and blah 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 blah. The attributes are actually the best basis for deriving every other statistics in Dungeons and Dragons, because the attributes actually fit really well and nicely with sports science and stuff like that. So the physical strength and dexterity and stuff is based on physics, and actual nerve velocity. Dexterity is nerve conductivity speed, and strength is muscle mass. It's that simple. So deriving things from dexterity and strength, you're going to come up with something which is reasonably accurate in the long run over the broad picture. The further you get away from those statistics, the further away you're getting from actual science. I know that's controversial, but there you go. It's actually time for... Oh, I'll stick around for a bit. Thank you, thank you, Super Grown. How do you feel about the concept of a professional DMing that has caught a good amount of traction thanks to Roll20 and the like? I have always been all for it. It's an extension of my general philosophy, very firmly held philosophy of your table, your rules. What you choose to do in the confines of your own home, your own gaming experience and stuff is entirely up to you. A lot of people have great difficulty finding groups, finding stable games and things like that. A DM who is accepting money to play games, to run games, is in part of that guaranteeing that they're going to show up and run that game. People who pay for that game are going to basically show up and run that game. So I would be more confident joining a game that I've paid money to because I know that it's going to carry on as a business venture, as long as. I have floated the idea of a D&D deposit. So basically you deposit a large sum of money to show up to that, and you get the deposit back if you show up to the game. So there's an actual penalty for not showing up to the game because you're essentially letting down a bunch of people who have given up their time and stuff to be there. But yeah, I absolutely think that there is a case to be made for a business model, and I think it's a service to the community at large. And I think people who have regular access to games and things have a point of privilege, in the proper sense of the word. They don't see the problem because they're not experiencing the problem. But people who don't have access to a game unless they pay for it, they will want to pay for it to get access to the game. And anybody who naysays that is not in their shoes, so they don't have a voice in that. So yeah, I absolutely think that there is a place for it, and I think the people who neg it are privileged. Yeah. And also, don't tell other people how to have fun. Unless it's a public event and anybody can come in, and there needs to be certain policies to protect people who are sensitive to various things. Games at conventions and things like that are a different kettle of fish. And I'm not talking about those sort of games. I'm talking about people's personal preferences and their personal choices. What they do with their time and their money is their choice, not mine, not yours. D&D deposit, yeah. William, closest to albinos you get in the drow are half Quasier and half drow, and their skin is grey to almost white. Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought there was a sub-race. I might be mixing them up with Other things. Only Adventure Communist has mandatory fun. Nice, nice. Tour video of the Pickett family villa. Yeah, maybe one day. I do have some equipment on the way which will provide me with a better means to make mobile filming. Do you think Primus and the forces of Mechanus can take on and defeat Mount Celestia in an open planar war? The nature of Primus would prevent that, because Primus sees the reason why Celestia exists. In fact, you could say that Primus is part of the reason why the planes are arranged the way they are. They are arrangement. That's the very nature of Primus. Beatings will continue until you have fun. Yep, it's time for me to go as well, William. So thanks for the stream, everybody. It's been a blast. I've had fun. Thank you for letting me talk about my life and stuff. And hopefully things will blow over and everybody stays safe and cautious. Caution for the more vulnerable people in our community is admirable. Yeah. You may not be at risk, but your neighbours may be. So, protect yourself to protect them is the best advice. You can't have half drow. The magic used by Lolth always created a drow. No, Joseph, that's not true. It may be true in some circumstances, but that's relaxed somewhat. We know this because there are actually half drow. All right. Catch you later, everyone.